back to Search It Up with Sienna Spotlight, where I chat with creative, fun, and talented people in and around pop culture. On today's episode, I'm going to be speaking with Olympic artistic swimmer and Cirque du Soleil performer, Christina Jones. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Christina Jones. How old were you when you first started swimming, and what got you interested in swimming?
So I don't even remember when I started swimming, just regular swimming. I started doing synchronized swimming, which is now called artistic swimming, when I was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
So before I even started doing artistic swimming, I was obsessed with the pool. My mom tells me a story about when I was an itty bitty tiny little girl, and she took me to Disneyland. And the whole time I went to Disneyland, I was asking to go back to the hotel because there was a pool there. I wanted to be in the hotel pool more than at Disneyland. So my parents always knew that I really loved the water. And I started racing when I was maybe 4, I would say 4 or 5. And then once I saw artistic swimming, I fell in love because I've always loved music and dancing and performing. Mm-hmm. And about at that age, I was like choreographing dances with my girlfriends in the neighborhood and having people video us. And so I loved doing choreography. I loved being part of a team. I loved being in the water. I loved performing. I loved music. And so this sport kind of married all of my favorite things into one.
That's actually pretty funny that you mentioned because dancing, because I love to dance. I do like competitive, so I perform at like a competition every year. I actually have one in like a little less than a month. Actually, I'm going to be performing at a competition. Wow. But I love to do dance too. And my friends, they live on my block. One of them's in my grade. One of them's a little younger than me. But I always teach them, like we make dances up together, and sometimes we'd perform them for the parents. So that kind of reminded me of what
It's so much fun, right?
It is. It's a lot of fun. And like I always ask them what song they want to choose, and then we try to make up a dance. And then we used to have this thing in the summer last year where we would do something called a 7 o'clock clap, which was basically for the healthcare workers. And my friend and I would always make up dances and then perform them. So
I love that.
Reminded me of what you said. So you also said that you been wanting to swim since, love swimming since you're like so young. So was your dream always to be a professional swimmer, or like what was your dream when you were that young?
When I was that young, I knew I wanted to go to the Olympics, but I just didn't know in which sport. So when I was young, I did figure skating, I did speed swimming, I did gymnastics, I did artistic swimming, and then I also did dance and soccer. And so I was just kind of one of those kids who did everything. And I've always loved the Olympics. I don't know. We didn't have cable growing up. You're probably thinking I'm like a dinosaur right now. We didn't have cable growing up, and my parents would only get cable during the Olympics because they wanted me to be able to watch all of the programming. And it was just such a magical time every 2 years, Winter and Summer Olympics, that all of the athletes were my heroes. And I knew I wanted to do that one day. I just didn't know in what yet.
In what areas of swimming do you train? Is it just synchronized or artistic swimming?
So in order to be a really good artistic swimmer, you have to cross train. So we actually do training on land to strengthen our muscles and to prevent injuries and to train flexibility. And then we also have to train what we call speed swimming, lap swimming, to build up our endurance and our efficacy in the water. And then we will also take dance classes and contortion classes and acting classes and all of these things to kind of make us these well-rounded performers who can put together a 3-minute routine.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I actually was watching your video with Bill May when you guys were performing, and it was definitely had some like acting and dancing with like all the waves and like the flexibility even. So yeah, it definitely probably helped when you were growing up that you did all that stuff, because it all kind of ties back in when you
totally. And he was a gymnast, so that's why he could do all those backflips when we were on the deck. He can do handstands and backflips, and he's also in Cirque du Soleil, so he's totally talented in many different ways. So yeah, the more well-rounded you are in different sports, the better you're going to be in any sport, I think.
Yeah. And what interested you about synchronized swimming when you were little? Like you could have chose to be like swim laps all the time, like
Yeah.
for like the Olympics or anything. Be like on a professional like just swimming laps team. Why did you want to do synchronized swimming?
Well, I really loved performing and I really love music and I love dancing. And there did come a point where my mom told me, you know, we have to select a sport. You physically can't do 6 sports anymore. Like the schedules are overlapping and I'm driving all around, you know, I can't do this anymore. And it's funny at the age of like, I want to say I was maybe like 7 or 8, I made the decision. And the main decision for me was that I really liked my friends at artistic swimming and being part of a team with my best friends with 7 other girls. I just couldn't imagine leaving them. And it was just such a natural choice for me because I really loved swimming with them. So I get kind of bored with lap swimming. There's only so long I can look at a line on the bottom of the pool. But when you add music and dance and friends, it's a lot more fun for me.
I definitely could agree with that. And what made you decide to train for the Olympics? Because I know that you said it's been a dream of yours since you were so young. But I mean, there has to come a time where like you're like, I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna start training for it. What like made you decide to start like to train for it?
So when I was 9 years old, the United States Olympic team won the gold medal at the 1996 Olympics. And they got straight tens for the first time in history. And 4 of the women on the 96 Olympic team were from my home club, the Santa Clara Aquamaids. So I actually grew up swimming in the same pool as them. And some of them were coaching me and I knew them. They were like my friends and my role models and my family. And I got to see them on that screen winning the gold medal with straight tens. And then I just was completely invested and I dove right in. And you don't just start training for the Olympics. There's steps that you take to get there. So the next step was qualifying to compete at nationals and then winning nationals. And then qualifying for the junior national team, which I did when I was 14 years old. And then you qualify for the senior national team. And then of course the Olympic team. So it wasn't like just 0 to 100. It's, you know, a little bit each day and a natural organic progression that eventually got me there.
You competed in the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. What was the process like to qualify for those Olympics?
So because I was in the duet, so there's 2 events, there's the team and the duet. I was one of 2 athletes, myself and my duet partner, Andrea Knott. We were the first 2 named athletes to the team because they started by selecting the duet. So what we had to do was swim our duet against other duets, which were vying for that position. And once we won the Olympic trials competition, we were the first 2 named to the team. But it's really quite a rigorous process to make any national team in normal national team years. And then for the rest of the Olympic team, they had to go through a crazy amount of trials. So at nationals, everybody gets to try out with something called elements, which is individual performance. And then the judges choose the top, I believe, 65. And then those top 65 do it. And then they choose the top 35. And then the top 35 go to trials and they all learn the same routine. And you swim the same routine by yourself, back to back to back. And then they rank you. And then you swim actually in the same pool at the same time with other people. And then they compare you there. And then they take 10. So it's a really rigorous competition. They get you on land and they assess your flexibility. And it's just all these crazy tests to do it.
It sounds like you're even tired just explaining all of
Yeah, I am. I can't, like, it feels like a lifetime ago sometimes. I can't believe I did all of that.
it. Yeah, definitely. And what was your days like training for the Olympics? Like I have to imagine it could have been like really like hard and just like nonstop keep going.
We trained 8 to 10 hours every single day, 6 days a week, 8 hours in the water and 2 to 3 hours on land.
Wow. That's a lot. How do you like keep when you're doing like the leg stuff? How do you keep your legs up in the air and like just twirling on like that. That's basically it.
It's a great question. So something that a lot of people don't know about our sport is that there's a penalty if you touch the bottom of the pool. So we're not allowed to touch the bottom of the pool. So there's a mechanism called egg beater, which water polo players use when they play because they're not allowed to touch the bottom either. So your legs are kind of going like this when you're upright. And then when you're upside down, like let's say these are my legs, your arms are going like this, which is what you call sculling. So everything you see above the water, there's like 20 times more going on underneath the water to keep that up.
What is it like competing in the Olympics? Do you make friends with the competitors or stay with your group?
Um, Whoa, these are really good questions. So
Yeah.
it's really important to keep that bubble with your team.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get distracted. The Olympics are huge and there's a lot going on and there's cameras everywhere and media and sometimes there's controversy and then, you know, everybody has different events at different times. So when you're in the Olympic Village, you know, you might not have started your competition yet and there's people celebrating because they just won the gold medal and they're done and you can hear them partying in the middle of the night and you're trying to sleep. So it's really important to maintain your focus, but it's also important to get to know other teams and to other athletes and to get to know people from different countries because that's really what the Olympics are all about. So I think it's really about finding a happy medium of really absorbing and taking in everything you can of your Olympic experience, but also staying focused on the job you've gone there to do.
Definitely, yeah. And what challenges did you face? Did you ever want to give up? And if so, what made you keep going?
It's really, really hard to train. And I think every single Olympian has had moments where they've wanted to give up because it hurts physically, you know, you get injuries and just training is hard and it's uncomfortable. And, you know, we're human. We have days that are hard and days that are not as hard. But I think what really got me through was my teammates and my family. So knowing that I had a team to show up for every day, it made it impossible to quit because they were counting on me and I was counting on them. And every time someone was having a hard time, we could just kind of like lean on our teammates. And that's why I really love being part of a team sport is that we kind of lifted each other up. And when we had a hard day, we were all in it together and we knew that we weren't alone. So I think having a shared goal really helped with that.
Yeah. And I know that you mentioned that you started training for like synchronized swimming and being like in the Olympics since you were like 13 or 14 is when you really started qualifying. Did that conflict with school or did it conflict with any other activities? I know that's probably your main activity, but school, like did it conflict with that?
Yeah, it did. When I was 15, I made the Santa Clara A team. So Santa Clara is my home club, and the A team of Santa Clara is notorious for winning nationals, the best in the nation. And the year that I made the team, 15 was pretty young to make it. I was on the team with two athletes who were like in their mid 20s at the time, and they'd already been to the Olympics and so it was a decision where I had to make, oh, and they trained during the day. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to go for my Olympic dream? Because if I'm going to go for my Olympic dream, I'm not going to be able to do the traditional schooling anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was part of an alternative school program, which was great. It was offered by my school district. And actually, Christy Yamaguchi, the ice skater, went to the same school.
Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, it's designed for people who don't have a traditional schedule. So I would go to school 1 day a week for 5 hours to take all of my tests. And as long as I was passing my proctored tests with my assigned teacher there, she would give me homework to complete and study for the next week. And then as long as I was coming in 1 day a week and passing the tests and doing my homework, then that was it. So I was doing homework on the side of the pool in between practices in the car with a flashlight. And I think what that did was it really helped me learn how to manage my time because I had pressure on myself to get my homework completed and to study for these tests. Because if I didn't, it would mean that I would have to stop training with the team that I was training with. So I think it really prepared me for college. And I think I saved a lot of time where maybe you would be walking in the hallway in between classes, or I don't know, just times in between periods. And I was taking that time to really train. And a lot of people ask me, well, don't you miss out on having the average high school experience? And there were some hard moments where I felt like I was missing out, but I was also going to Thailand and Russia and Canada and Japan and Brazil. So I was traveling the world. So what better experience than that?
Last year, I'm in 6th grade now, and 5th grade, it kind of got messed up because of COVID and everything, the last half. So we didn't get to learn everything, and we would have like in elementary school, like maybe one test a month for each subject. But this year, we have like a test a week at least for no matter what it is. Like one day I think we had 3 tests in one day for 3 subjects. So like it was a lot, but like that also helped me because it was a lot more work. It helps me push myself more to do better, manage my time. So
Absolutely. The more that you can push yourself and learn how to balance your time, the easier it's going to be when you go to college, because when you go to college, there's less homework assignments. And sometimes there's really only 2 tests and 1 project a year. So you can show up to class every day. And if you're not paying attention and you don't pass that test, you don't pass the class. So I think that when you take on your own responsibility with time management, like it sounds like you're doing a great job of that. You're going to prepare yourself for that next step.
after the Olympics, you joined Cirque du Soleil aquatic show. Oh, how did you get involved with that, and what went into rehearsing and training for that show?
So I mentioned that the 96 Olympic team were a bunch of my heroes. They still are. So after the Olympics in 1996, a handful of them, a handful of my heroes went to Canada, went to Montreal to create O. So I watched these people go to the Olympics, and then I watched them go to O. So it was kind of my natural next goal because it's what my idols were doing. And then when I saw O for the first time, I was completely blown away, and I saw my sport portrayed in a completely different way, in a different environment. So after the Olympics, I was pretty burnt out. I was exhausted and fatigued. And once I got the opportunity to join O, I felt kind of like I got a breath of fresh air, and I got to explore my sport in a completely different way where there's less rules and less structure and more freedom. So training for O, a lot of it is unlearning things that you've learned. So like we had to point our feet all the time when we were at the Olympics, and then suddenly at O, you can have floppy feet or flexed feet, and that's just like one example. And it's also great to work with athletes from different sports. So I wasn't just working with artistic swimmers, I was working with gymnasts and dancers and divers. And then there's people who are from the circus and they are professional clowns and pantomimes and actors and contortionists and jugglers and all of the trapeze artists, all of these incredible things that I hadn't been exposed to before. So it felt like a whole new world, because it was.
What did you love most about like when you were performing in Cirque du Soleil?
I think what I loved most, aside from the water being really warm and being able to breathe underwater on scuba, so I didn't have to hold my breath as much. I think what I loved, aside from those things, was learning to fall in love with my sport in a different way, and to explore my expression and my art in a different way.
Is there someone in particular who really inspired you?
I would say Jill Suddeth, Becky Darren Lancer, Susanna Bianco, and Heather Carrasco all really inspired me. Those were the Santa Clara members of the 96 Olympic team. And then I watched 3 of those 4 athletes become artists with Cirque du Soleil. So I would say that group of people really made me who I am.
If you could travel like anywhere in the world where you haven't been yet, where would you want to go?
I love that question. I would like to go to Portugal. I've always wanted to go to Portugal, and I haven't been yet.
That's cool. I've always really wanted to go to Italy, and then like the more I read about it and the more older I get, kind of sounds more interesting to me. So like I'd probably go there first. And then I've always, for some reason, I think it's actually Harry Potter who really pushed me, but I really wanted to go to London really bad. I think it's because I'm a really big Harry Potter fan. So and a lot of the actors in that are British. So I feel like a lot of my favorite actors are British for some reason. So I want to go to London. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah. You can hit those both in one trip and it'll be amazing.
The one thing I really want to try there is like my dad said it's really good, is their melon and I think it's prosciutto. Yeah. Melon.
Yeah. It's funny, my husband's French and they eat that there too. So it's so good. And also in Italy, you have to try the mozzarella balls. My mouth is watering right now just thinking about it.
Yeah, same. Even though I haven't been, like, all the food just sounds so good.
Yeah.
And is there any advice you'd give to young girls pursuing their dreams?
Well, I'm looking at one, and I just want to say before I answer that question that I'm completely blown away by you're super articulate, you think on your feet, you're smart, you're witty. So just keep it up. I love seeing girls shoot for their dreams, and you're doing a great job. So keep it up. And advice that I would just give, of course, advice that I would give to anyone is something my dad told me all the time when I was little was a little bit each day. And I mentioned that earlier in this interview. So he would point to people randomly throughout the day, whether it was like an Olympic gold medalist or a really great artist, or even like a banker or whoever, just someone who was just really good at what they did. And he would say, do you think that they woke up this morning and they were able to do that? And I would say no. And he would say, well, how did they get to do that? And I would say they worked on it a little bit each day. So as long as you're taking a step each day, and it doesn't matter how tiny that step, and some days you're going to take a step back, but then you wake up the next day and take 2 steps forward. As long as you just keep moving forward, you're going to get where you want to go.
And I want to thank you so much. You definitely inspired me in what you do, and I'll always remember this interview.
Oh, thank you.
Good to talk to you, and I learned so much about your experience, and I can really I probably can't even feel how hard it was and how hard you worked, but it just seems like you did so much for your dream, and I think that's like really cool.
Oh, thank you, Sienna. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. Thank you, Christina. You're such an inspiration, especially to kids looking to pursue their dream. That's it for today. See you next time on Spotlight.